Hey friends, it's Lori with the blog wagonwheelhomestead.com. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to make something absolutely amazing. I can't wait to show you. And that is, we're going to make sourdough donuts. These are very simple to make. This is an overnight recipe. I just mix up the dough the night before and let it rise, shape it, let it rise, and in the morning we fry them and put different toppings on them. So today we have made like a Boston cream-filled donut with a chocolate glaze. We've made jam-filled donuts. We've also made traditional glazed donuts and sugared donuts, and then some basic chocolate-covered donuts as well. So these are really easy. You can make these in your kitchen anytime, and it's something that I know you're really gonna enjoy. So we're gonna start with last night when I mixed up the dough. I'm just going to show you exactly what I did and walk you through the process. These are great for first snow days, so that's kind of a tradition in our family. Anytime it's the first snow in the fall or the early winter, my kids always know there's going to be fresh donuts waiting, and I don't always have a lot of warning beforehand. You know, it's like, oh man, is it really going to snow or is it really not going to snow? And so I love that I can just mix these up, let them set overnight, and fry them first thing in the morning for breakfast, even on a school day, and we can still have a super yummy treat. So let's get started. All right, so to get these donuts going, my favorite way is in my Bosch mixer. If you've been following along here for a while, you know that I use this pretty much every day in my kitchen, and I will put a link for this in the description box below. This is just my favorite way to mix up so many things, and it can be doing the mixing while I'm doing the dishes and all of that. So this is super simple. What we're gonna do is put in 2 cups of warm milk. Okay, so I just warmed that up just a little bit, because when you're working with sourdough, you're working with yeast. It's just wild yeast. So it's similar to working with regular yeast, and you definitely want it, you know, your dough warm if possible, because we want these donuts to raise a little bit overnight. So then 3/4 of a cup of sugar, 2 teaspoons of salt, and this is going to make about 16 donuts. You can certainly cut the recipe in half if you would like, but I find that 16 donuts for my family do not last very long. A teaspoon of vanilla, a 1/2 cup of melted butter, and 1 cup of sourdough starter. This is was active a little bit ago. I kind of had a busy day, so I didn't get to it quite as soon as I wanted to, but it's still going to be fine. It was fed this morning, and it's evening now. Get all the goodie out of there. Okay, and then I'm just going to turn this on. Put my lid on, turn it on, and I'm going to let it mix while I add 7 cups of all-purpose flour. And I'm going to shut it off and just tell you, I'm going to let this mix for like 10 minutes. You really want your dough and your gluten really well developed in your dough when you're doing things like donuts. And so I'm just going to forget about this and let it mix for about 10 minutes. And in the meantime, we're going to make some cream filling that we can put into some of the donuts. And I'll show you how we do that in the morning, but we want to make the filling tonight and get it put into the refrigerator. So for the cream pie filling, if you're going to make all of your donuts cream filled, you'll want to double this. But I obviously made a bunch of mine just plain chocolate covered. I put jam in some of them, and then I glazed a bunch. So just keep in mind you'll want to double this if you want to make them all cream filled. And you can find this printable recipe on the blog wagonwheelhomestead.com. And we have a decent sized little saucepan. What you're going to want to do is put in 1.5 cups of sugar, a 1/2 cup of cornstarch, a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and 2 cups of milk. And you're going to stir that and heat it over medium heat until it gets thick. And while it's warming up, you're going to want to take 2 cups of milk and put them into a container, a bowl or something. A lot of times what I use is just a 4-cup measuring cup. So you're going to put 2 cups of milk in there and 4 eggs. And you're going to whisk that up
and just let it set and be ready. And then when the cream in the pot is hot and bubbling, you're going to put just a little bit of it in with the milk egg mixture. You're just going to stir it up really well. It just tempers or warms up the milk mixture. Then you're going to add it back to the pot, bring it back to a boil, get it nice and hot. I usually let it boil for about a minute. Then you're going to add 2 tablespoons of butter and 2 teaspoons of vanilla and stir it up well. I usually have the heat off at this point, and that makes a wonderful cream filling for donuts or pies or anything. And then I just put the lid on this and put it in the fridge after it cooled off a little bit and let it cool overnight.
All right, let's check on our dough. Feels so nice and soft. And what you can do is you can pull it up, and if it doesn't tear and you can get it thin enough to where you can see through it, that's called the window pane test. So this is really well-developed dough. And what you can do a couple things. You can either put this dough in an airtight container in the refrigerator overnight, and then roll out your donuts in the morning. It could even be in the fridge for a couple of days, actually. Then you can get this beautiful dough out, and you can roll them out and let them rise a second time, and then fry them up for donuts. What I'm going to do, because I always want my donuts first thing in the next morning, and I'm a really busy mom, what I'm going to do is I'm going to let this dough rest just a little bit, because it will roll out better when it's rested. So I'm going to go do my chores really quick and just let this rest. And then when I come back, I'm going to cut it out into donuts and let it rise overnight in the shape of donuts. And when I get up in the morning, I can quickly fry these up in like 15 minutes and have fresh donuts first thing in the morning without much effort. Like really, this didn't take hardly any time to mix this while I was making the pudding and doing a few other things. And so, yeah, I'm just gonna let this rest. So I'll be back in a few minutes, and we're gonna roll this out and cut them out into donuts. It's gonna be so yummy. All right, back from chores. And what I'm gonna do is just spread a little bit of flour on the countertop. Not a lot. This dough is so beautiful. I love making donuts. Just gonna roll it out. You don't want it too thin. About 1/3 to a 1/2 inch thick is gonna be fine. It's already got lots of bubbles in it from the sourdough doing its thing. If you put these in the fridge first before doing this step, you're gonna get a more long fermented donut, and you're gonna get a tangier, more sour result. But I usually, like I said, I usually make these for first snow donuts, and for our family, this is just fine. You know, I don't usually have a lot of morning. Sometimes it's a school day, and you know, it's gonna be the first snow, and I want donuts, and so this is just what I do. So these are biscuit cutters. Now, you can use whatever you have. You can use a wide mouth quart jar, or you could use, you know, anything like that. But these are biscuit cutters. You can also get an actual donut cutter. I don't have one, so this is just always what I use. And you're just gonna push straight down, kind of twist just a little bit to loosen them. This is like a 4-inch donut, but you can do whatever size you want. And then I am gonna take the middle. Now you can use the top of a juice cap, or you know, anything that you have in your kitchen. But I'm gonna use this small little donut cutter or biscuit cutter, and these are gonna be the donut holes. And what we're gonna do is we're just gonna put these on a parchment lined baking sheet, and we're gonna let them raise until morning. Then we're gonna fry them up in some beef tallow, which is my cooking oil of choice. It's just so much healthier, but you can use whatever oil you have. And of course the donut holes are my kids' favorite. Now, you could just make donut holes. You know, you could cut them all out of these really small, the small ones. And we're also, because we're gonna put cream in some of them, we're not gonna cut the holes out of the middle of some of these. So like this one, we'll just leave this one like that, and this one is gonna puff up when we fry it, and then we'll put cream or jam or whatever in the inside, some chocolate on the top or sugar. And you could make a double batch of these in the Bosch. That would certainly be doable, just depending on how many people you want to feed. You know, donuts are best when they're fresh. They're all right within a day, and you can freeze them. You absolutely can. I've done that before. I've made big batches and then frozen them. But I just like them fresh, so no harder than these are to make. I don't mind just mixing up this size of a batch and then doing it again if I decide I want more than one morning of donuts, you know, in a short amount of time. See if I can get one more out of this. Might not be perfect, but it will be okay. All right, I've got 2, 4, 6. So we'll that are without the holes. So now I'm gonna re-roll this. It's always, you know, the dough is always a little harder to work with, just like cinnamon roll dough or anything. It's a little harder to work with after it's been rolled the first time, but that's okay. We're not gonna waste the dough. It's gonna be so good. Just sometimes it has a little more of the folds in it, and it's just sometimes a little bit tougher, but you won't notice it in the donuts, I don't think. A little flour on the bottom there, and just roll this out. Like I said, it's a little harder to work with, but you can just stretch it, let it rest a little, stretch it, and it works out just fine. You just have to be patient with it. of this. And this, I'm just gonna roll it up and it's just gonna be a little funny shaped donut. It's just the end. But let me tell you, somebody's gonna eat it and really enjoy it. So then all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cover these 2 cookie sheets with another cookie sheet turned upside down just to kind of keep the moisture in here. You know, you can cover it with if you had like a beeswax wrap or plastic wrap, but what can happen is as these puff up a little bit, they can tend to stick to that wrap. So I'm just gonna take my cookie sheet and I'm just gonna turn it right upside down just like this. And it's just gonna sort of trap the moisture in there a little bit. I'm gonna leave it set here at room temperature to long ferment overnight and to raise. And then in the morning, we're just gonna fry these, you know, put the toppings or filling on them, and then there you go. You've got donuts, quick and easy. You know, you could do these even for, you can do these for a brunch, but you can get these made for holiday mornings. You know, lots of different things you can do these donuts for because they don't take a lot of time to prep in the morning. So, all right, I'll see you in the morning. Good morning. All right, so I'm gonna get the fat started. This is my beef tallow that I render down and then I make it shelf stable by sealing it into jars. And I have a video coming out really soon, and if you're watching this later on, you'll find it on how to render beef tallow. So you can be sure to search for that on the blog wagonwheelhomestead.com or on YouTube. So what I'm going to do with this tallow, I'm just going to put it in this skillet, this Dutch oven, turn it on medium-high heat, and we want to heat this until it's about 375 degrees. So you don't want your oil to get below 350 when you are frying the donuts, or else they will get greasy. And you don't want it to be super, super hot, or else they will burn. So there's kind of a sweet spot you have to find. So it does take a fair bit of grease. You want them to be able to float. So I'm going to put about 2 to 3 inches in here. And you can save this to cook in again, so it's not like all this tallow is going to be ruined. By the way, if you don't have tallow, if you just use whatever you have. Use whatever oil you have in your fridge. But I'll tell you that seed oils are not good for you. A lot of you have probably heard of that by now. And so using a good high quality fat for frying is really important, not only for your health, but also so that the donuts turn out really yummy. So we're just gonna let that heat up, and then I'm gonna make a little bit of a chocolate glaze to put on some of the donuts. So for the chocolate topping, I'm just gonna take 2/3 of a cup of heavy cream. This is cream from our Jersey milk cows. And then we're gonna heat that, not quite to boiling, but we're just gonna get it super hot, and right before it boils, we're gonna shut it off and stir in some semi-sweet chocolate chips. And that'll be just really simply the chocolate that we will, dip the donuts in after we put the cream in. All right, let's add our chocolate chips. And just let them sit there and come to temperature. Then we'll stir that up in a few minutes. And checking on our oil, it is at 250 or 60 degrees. This is a neat little thermometer. I'll try to link one down below. It's just a radar thermometer. I use it for all my cheese making and soap making, so it's really good to have one of these around. All right, our tallow is at 375, 380, so I just turned it down to medium high, and it'll cool it off a lot, of course, as soon as we add the donuts. And I just really quick want to stir up the chocolate topping. And I'm just going to set it off to the side. You don't want it to cool off too much, but I don't want it to sit here and continue to cook beside this pot of oil while we fry the donuts. This is what our donuts look like. They've puffed up some overnight. They don't puff up a lot. We're just going to put a rack. If you don't do this, it's okay, but just a rack on the other cookie sheet so that you can set them on here and they can kind of drain their oil off when they're done. All right, and we're just gonna drop our donuts 3 or 4 at a time. And again, this is gonna cool off some. You wanna kind of keep an eye on your temperature. At 375 right now. You want about a minute on each side. You'll see that they're gonna puff up and brown, and so you'll see when they're done. You don't wanna cook them too long. If you do, they will be crispy on the outside. And of course, my family still loves them, so it's not a big deal. But you don't wanna cook them super long if you want them to be really perfect donuts. You have to kind of keep checking your heat because again, it's gonna cool off and you just don't want it to drop below 350. So you just sort of keep checking it. And I like to use tongs for this, but you can use anything. See, that one's brown, so I'm just gonna flip him over. They puff up really high. And again, it's all just from the sourdough starter. There's no yeast or anything in these at all, so it's really fun. All right, let's check this one. Yep, pretty brown underneath. So I'm just gonna go ahead and pull this out and let it drip just a little bit. Stick it right over here on our tray. These will be the ones that we can put jam or cream in. Okay, check our temperature. 385. That's even just a little hot. I'm gonna go ahead and keep frying, but I am gonna turn it down just a little bit. And I'm gonna stick some little donut holes in on the side. And be sure to comment below your favorite donut fillings or toppings, because that would just be fun for everybody to get ideas. There's so many different ways you can do donuts, but it would be fun. I'd love to hear from you on what your favorites are. My favorite donut is just the old-fashioned glazed donut, and we're going to do some of those today. See, the oil's at 347 now, so I'm going to turn it back up. You really have to kind of watch it. Of course, we added quite a bit to this, which turned it down. Let's check this one. He can be a little browner on the other side. I just watch for color, mainly. perfect. Hard to get these little guys to stay turned over, but that's gonna be just fine. Okay, let's check our oil. 360 again. Little donut holes never want to turn over for me. There's nothing as good as sourdough donuts. Once you make these, you will never go back. And by the way, if I were just making for snow donuts, I'd probably just glaze them just to keep it simple. I wouldn't do all the different fillings on just 16 donuts because, you know, that's where the work is, right? Making the chocolate topping and the glaze and the you know, the cream filling. But to show you today how to do all those things, that's why I'm doing all of that, and just to give you ideas. So a lot of times we just do glazed and jam filled, and my kids are perfectly happy with that. Check our oil here. 372, so we're still good. And my heat is just below medium. You know, every stove will be different, so you'll just have to keep track of the temperature. See, it's 350 now, so that's perfect. You just don't want it to go a lot lower than that because they end up soaking up the grease instead of cooking in it. Tallow is amazing stuff. I've really enjoyed cooking in it. First of all, it's healthy, but then it has a really high smoke point, so you can fry basically anything in it. And of course, because any of that soaks into your food is healthy, then I feel, you know, safer about doing that. It's not hard, so for me, I can get the fat from my local locker plant or butcher shop to make tallow for free because they have, I live in beef country and they have so much extra. You know, it might be different where you are, but if you're willing to go to the work to render it down, which it's not hard, then, you know, it's like for me, it's basically free oil. And oil is really expensive, so free oil is a good thing. It's one more way you can stay out of the grocery store and keep your grocery budget at a minimum. Once these have drained, I'm just gonna slide them off my rack over here so I can put the new ones on the rack. My kids are gonna be really excited when they wake up because there's actually not snow on the ground right now. It's December, We've had an unusually dry winter, a mild winter, which is a blessing because we've still got lots of outside work to do. But my kids are gonna be like, what? There's no snow and we get donuts? Perks of having a YouTuber for a mama. I love how simple the ingredients are in this as well. So, you know, anything that you're going to get at the store or even at the donut shop is going to just have so many ingredients in it and be processed. And of course, the oil that it's cooked in is not going to be healthy. Not to say that you can't stop at the donut shop now and then, right? Like, that's fine. But it's such a blessing to be able to make these in your own home for your children, knowing that they're going to be nourishing and healthy, and they are a fun treat. Of course, we don't eat these all the time. It's just more of a special thing. I must have rolled these donuts a little bit thinner because they actually made 19 this time. Usually they make about 16, but it just depends on how thin you roll your dough as to how many you end up with, of course. And you're not going to catch me with a ruler measuring the thickness of the dough very often. That's just not my personality. Let's check this temperature, 354, so we're still good. We've got 3 more to fry after this and then we're done. You know, if you were in a hurry and you were gonna do a bunch of these, you could get 3 or 4 pots of oil going. But then you have all that oil that you have to heat up, which of course, like I said, you can use it again, but I just love being able to do these overnight without having to think about it 2 or 3 days ahead of time. I also love that I could do it way ahead of time. So like if I was gonna do this for Christmas morning or Easter morning, I can make the dough up a day or 2 ahead of time, stick it in my fridge, and then just roll it out the night before and let it rise. Get up and fry them the next morning. So there's lots of options when you do sourdough. It's really flexible. It's right at 350, so we're still good. Turn it up maybe just a little bit, but these are our last 3, so. And I don't time as far as how long to leave them in, because when our oil was like 380 degrees, they cook a little faster than when they're at 350. So I just wait till they look brown, but not too brown, and then flip them over and then take them out. This one's got a big bubble on the side of him of the way he's puffing up. That means there'll be lots of room inside of him for cream or jam, either one. My favorite jam to put inside of these is strawberry rhubarb jam. It's so good. Just holding them under the oil a little bit because these ones with the big puffy part on them aren't all the way down in the oil, which is fine. It's just nice if they're evenly browned. Let's go a little bit more. 370 already. Boy, you don't have to change your heat very much and it changes the oil. It's really responsive. Okay, that one's done. These are all done. So I'm going to shut off my oil. We're going to make the glaze and then we're going to put the toppings on these and we'll be ready to eat. Okay, for the glaze, I've just got a 1/4 cup of melted butter. And you don't really have to measure, but I'll measure today. So I'm going to take 2 cups of powdered sugar, a couple teaspoons of vanilla, and a couple tablespoons of milk. And if it's not thin enough, you can add a little bit more milk to thin it down. So again, this is what I would typically do. I wouldn't necessarily, you know, go to all the work to do the cream filling and all of that for just an average day of making donuts. But I wanted to show you all the options, so I'm going to just do a little bit more milk because you want it, you know, so that it will drip off the donuts and actually glaze them really well. I think just a little bit more. Okay, let's try that. So I'm just gonna take one of these donuts. These are still sort of warm. Just dip it in the glaze. I think I'm gonna thin it out a little bit more even. My kids would prefer if there were more glaze on the donuts, but it's not supposed to be quite that thick. There we go, let's try that. So I'm just gonna dip these in here, and I like to dip both sides, but you know, you can do it however you want. You can do a whole bunch of them at a time and stick them like on the handle of a wooden spoon, like this, and let them drip down into the bowl. That's an option too, but my kids are gonna be ready to just devour these, so we're just gonna dip them quick. And dip the donut holes, of course. You can also dip some in plain sugar. So just take a little bowl of regular sugar and see it sticks really nicely to your donut. So that's an option. But again, glazed they've always been my favorite donuts. So that's kind of what I tend to make the most of. You could just fry up a bunch of donuts and have different toppings and then let your kids put whatever they wanted to on the top. That would be a fun thing as well. Okay, and then I'm also, I think that's good enough on the glaze. This is the chocolate. So I'm also going to do a couple of these round ones with the holes in the middle just in the chocolate. So I'm just going to dip it in, turn it upside down, and then just let it kind of set up a little bit. Okay. Oh, here's one more. Let's just put him in the glaze. That was our end donut. All right, let's just slide these over. And let's work on filling these really quickly. So this is just a Pampered Chef cake decorator that I've had for a long time. You can also use just a piping bag and just put a tip. I'm going to use this tip that's really going to stick into the donuts, but you can use whatever kind of a tip that you have. So here's our pudding or our cream. I'm just going to scoop some of this in here. And again, you can use a piping bag too. I've done that a whole bunch, but this is just what I have handy. And since we're only going to do a few, this is what I'm going to use. I'm going to put the end on. Okay. So these have cooled off enough that I can hold on to them. You're just going to stick it in as far as you can, all the way on the inside, and then just fill it with cream until the cream is coming, you know, back out the hole. You can fill the donut, you can feel the donut getting full. Okay, and there you go. Okay, I'm going to refill this here. Okay, this one needed a little bit more. Okay, we've got 2, 4, 5 with, we've got 5 with pudding, and I think I'll do 3 with jam. So if you were going to make all of these into cream-filled donuts, you would want to make a double batch of the filling, and I'll put a note of that into the blog post as well. So I'm just gonna rinse this out and we're gonna put some jam in it and then fill some of these with jam. But before we do that, we're gonna carefully take these cream-filled donuts and we're going to dip them in the chocolate. And there you go. Yum. Absolutely delicious and all homemade and from scratch. Simple and easy. Okay, and these last 3 we're going to put jam in. Okay, this is actually raspberry jam, and I'll put a link to how I made this. It's a little bit thinner than like regular jelly, but it still works really good for donuts. And again, my favorite is strawberry rhubarb, but you can use whatever you have. This is what my kids brought me. So I'm just gonna scoop some into my little filler thing. I don't know how much I need just for 3 donuts, but it takes quite a bit to fill a donut. Now, you don't have to fill them all the way full, but I like to just because it's yummy. This jam was made from raspberries that we grew here on our own homestead, and it's made without pectin. So it's an old-fashioned way of making jam. Okay, I'm just gonna put this on here. Okay, and I'm gonna just stick it in as far as I can go again and fill these up. These are going to be a little more messy, so you're definitely going to want to eat these on a plate. I'm going to get a little bit more jam here. Kind of messy, but that's okay. Super yummy too. Okay, and let's fill this one. Okay, and then these jam-filled donuts, very carefully, I'm going to take them and just roll them in the regular sugar. And there you have it. Super delicious homemade sourdough donuts in just a matter of a few minutes. And my family is absolutely gonna love these. So if you enjoy these kind of videos, you wanna learn how to cook from scratch, how to live independently from the grocery store, and have a simple, sustainable life, please hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.